Woodford. Very happy to be the subject of your first interview. I was born in 1946. That makes me 78. I will be 79 next month, so I'm getting on. I was born in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, which is down in the southeast part of the state. Uh, my father was just out of the Navy in World War II. He went to college on the GI Bill, met my mother at Cape
Hmm.
Girardeau. My dad was from Nebraska, but he went to college in Missouri. And they got married and they had me. I was born on Halloween, of all things, so that's a big deal for me.
Yeah.
Dad taught school over in Illinois across the river for the first 3 or 4 years of my life. And about the time I was 5 years old, he joined the Air Force, as a commissioned officer, because he had his college degree by then. Uh, we started traveling around the country and the world. I grew up as a military brat. We were stationed in Germany. We were stationed in Virginia. We were stationed in Wyoming, all over the place. So I had good experiences growing up as an Air Force brat. Uh, I always considered the Air Force part of my family because that's what I grew up in. Always fascinated by the aircraft at the air bases we were at. I grew up like most kids, most boys my age, making airplane models, dreaming about flying someday. That was always like a first dream for so many kids. But by the time I was married, going to college myself, starting a family, uh, I still thought about it, but it wasn't really a realistic goal. And
Hmm.
I was going to become a school teacher. And I think also there was some late teenage rebelliousness in there of not wanting to follow in my father's footsteps. Uh,
Yeah.
not that I had anything against it; it was just rebellion. But I was out of graduate school with a brand new master's degree, with a 3 or 4 year old boy and a young marriage. We were living up in Montana. An Air Force recruiter came through town. The Vietnam War was still needing pilots for the Air Force.
Hmm.
He talked me into it. It wasn't hard. and
Right.
I signed up and we went from there.
And this was in 1973, wasn't it?
This was in
Yeah.
1973 up in
Hmm.
Northeast Montana. I
All
should probably mention that I had never actually been at the controls of an airplane until about 1971, maybe.
right.
I
Hmm.
was in graduate school at Sacramento State College in California, and my medieval literature professor had a Piper J3 Cub that he kept down at Davis,
Hmm.
which is south of Sacramento. And he took me flying one day, gave me the stick once we were up in the air, talked me through a few basic maneuvers, and I thought, yeah, this is like I had dreamed. It was like I had dreamed. It was a wonderful thing to fly. And I thought, I would dearly love to do this someday. But at the time, I was thinking I'd have to do it on my own as a private
Yeah.
pilot. You know,
Right.
makes me first and all that. So when that opportunity came up a couple of years later in Montana to join the Air Force and go to pilot training, uh, I heard the call. And that's how that all got started.
All right.
Signed
Um,
up. This was in early 1973, and I think there was about a 6 month delay.
all right.
Uh, I did have to go down to the Air Force Base at Great Falls, Montana. It was called Mountstrom Air Force Base, and take a flight physical, which I did, and I passed. And I
Hmm.
took the qualification exam for pilot training, which I passed. Uh, and then in September of 73, I finally got my orders to report to officer training school at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas
Hmm.
as a pilot candidate. I went down. It was basically boot camp for officers. Lots of physical training, lots of calisthenics, lots of marching. Uh, Typically, officer training school in those days, and I think today even still, is a 90-day thing. They call us 90-day wonders. There were a lot of us in the Vietnam days. But what they did with the pilot candidates was you went through the first month of officer training school with your class, and then you were taken out of that class, put in a separate barracks on the other side of the base, and bust out every day to Hondo Airfield outside of San Antonio, where
Mm-hmm.
you go through what they call pilot lead-in training, or can't remember exactly what that's called. It'll come to me, but it's basically a screening program to make sure that you can make it through pilot training. You fly the Cessna 172. It's
T-41, right? Yep. Mm-hmm.
yeah, they call it the
Yeah.
T-41 Solero. So it was a stripped down bare aluminum paint Cessna 172.
Yeah.
But it had the six-cylinder engine and all that. We flew those with a mixture of civilian and military instructors. There were a few Air Force pilots assigned there as instructor pilots, and those are the guys you took your check ride with. But my day to day instructor was one of two Norwegian brothers, two brothers who were building up their 1,500 hours to qualify for ATPs,
Mm-hmm.
and their dream was to go back and fly for SAS.
All right.
Uh, so I learned to fly from a Norwegian who obviously spoke excellent English and was a good instructor. I
Yeah.
soloed on, I think, my ninth flight.
Yeah.
Uh, and then on my ninth or 10th flight, I had my official check ride with an Air Force pilot. And that was the flight screening program. That's what it was called. And I graduated from that. So then what happens? You've been away from your OTS for about a month. Now you go back to OTS and you finish your second 2 months with a later class. So all the guys and girls that I started out with, they were all senior cadets now. They could boss us around, make us stand at attention. And then I had to meet a whole new group of people, and I finally graduated. So I graduated in right at the end of 1973.
Uh-huh.
Had orders to report to Vance Air Force Base, Oklahoma, for pilot training. Started pilot training. Now joined by my wife and child,
Okay.
and rented an old farmhouse in Enid to live in for the first year or so we were there. Uh, we were about 3 months into pilot training, about halfway through the T-37 program, when the Vietnam War finally did indeed come to a halt.
Right.
The Air Force had a huge decision to make. They had so many pilots. Were they going to RIF the young
What
captains? The
what is
RIF is
what is
we call it reduction in force. Were they
okay.
going to riff? Were they going to riff the captains, or were they going to take people like me, the newbies in pilot training, and just send us packing? And of course, we're all, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? None of us knew what was
Insecure.
going to happen. They
Yeah.
assigned us. They assigned us to casual duties around base. I think I worked with the civil engineers for a while as just as a gopher in the office.
Right.
But then, after about a month of not flying and not being in training, the Air Force came to a decision. They fired the captains. So a lot of our instructor pilots that we had already grown to fly with and like were let go from the Air Force. The decision broke our way, and we were able to go back into pilot training. So my pilot training class started off as 7503. The way that worked was the year 75 was the fiscal year in which your class was scheduled to graduate. So
Mm-hmm.
this we would have been the third graduating class of fiscal year 75.
Okay.
After the delay we went through, we were changed to 7505, I think, or 7504. So
Right.
we had a new class number. We started again where we left off, and the rest of the pilot training went just as scheduled. 6 months in the Tweet, 6 months in the T-38. There were 40 of us. I think 60 of us started, 40 of us made it to graduation. The washout rate was fairly high back in
Yeah.
those days. Uh, I was number four in a class of 40. Traditionally, the top 10% of graduates get their choice of aircraft assignment. But
Uh-huh.
as I mentioned, the Vietnam War had come to an end,
Right.
and there were not very few fighters available. And of course, I wanted a fighter. I put in for a fighter, F4 or an A7. I remember were my choices, but there were none to be had. The first couple of graduates in our class did get fighters. The rest of us had to get whatever was left over. And
Hmm.
I got a T-37 assignment to go right back to the same base and spend the next 3 years teaching young kids like I just was to
Yeah.
fly. Uh, I was disappointed, I'll be honest.
Hmm.
But once I started doing that, I started really liking it. And
Yeah.
I learned so much about flying. It was such a good education. So when 3 years later, this brand new airplane in the inventory, the F-15, they started letting air training command instructor pilots like myself into the F-15. This was a new thing. There was only like one or two people before my group that got into the F-15 from pilot training. So I was just thrilled, and there I was getting into fly the F-15. This is in 1978.